That right there is a building exploding in Saratov, Russia, after gas lines are just blowing up. Russia is actually crumbling, and Ukraine is taking the upper hand, and America should be leading the war efforts and helping Ukraine against Russia. But instead, Donald Trump is out there covering up his dark past with Jeffrey Epstein. That's why I start with that video. There are international affairs happening. There are things where the United States president should be the leader of the free world, but Donald Trump is the leader of a pedophile cover-up ring right now, utilizing the Department of Justice for that purpose, and it should piss every American off right now. This isn't a red or blue or Democrat or Republican issue. This is a good versus evil issue. I want to talk about just some world affairs right now. I reported earlier this week that there's like a war raging between Thailand and Cambodia as the United States has basically crumbled its State Department and ceded its leadership in the world. 11 civilians died there. Ukraine is also launching valiant efforts to defend itself against Russia as the United States dangles Patriot missiles but never actually really delivers. Waves of Ukrainian drones targeting war-related manufacturing across several Russian regions. Think about how brave Ukraine right now is, and contrast that to Donald Trump's behavior, sending his number 2 at the Department of Justice to meet with Gillian Maxwell. Think about how Donald Trump treated Zelensky in the Oval Office, and how Donald Trump's DOJ rolled out the freaking red carpet for Gillian Maxwell and provided her with something called use immunity. They made her what's called Queen for the Day, and allowed her to say whatever the hell she wanted and not be prosecuted for the comments made to the Department of Justice. Trump made a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell while you saw what he did with Zelensky in the Oval Office. Going back to Ukraine's bravery, because I want to highlight that at the outset. Not Donald Trump looking like an utter fool in Scotland as he wastes the taxpayers' dime here at the United States, costing us and the taxpayers of Scotland millions of dollars. Let me show you what real courage is. And that's how I want to start this video. Coordinated drone strikes have again breached the depths of Russia's industrial base. On the night of July 25th, 2025, Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles struck at a major chemical plant in Russia, a facility recognized as central to Russia's defense industrial complex. Local authorities, including the city's Russian mayor, stated that there was 37 separate impacts at the sites. Initial reports cited 1 injury, later revised to none. Officials stressed the situation remained under control and expressly requested that residents refrain from sharing imagery or speculation on social media. But we got the photo right there, folks, thanks to the great Ukrainian journalist at the Kyiv Insider. But doesn't that sound very Trumpy? Let's just cover it up. We don't want our journalists reporting on what actually is going down. And just think about it, right? The Putonsesque tactics there, the Putonsesque tactics here in the United States, how Donald Trump weaponized for years the Epstein files, the Epstein list, to demonize his political opponents when everyone knew that Donald Trump's name was on those files. The Wall Street Journal confirmed that Donald Trump's name appears several times on the files, and he was briefed about that in May, then went into cover-up mode and said, all right, let's call this an Obama, Comey, Clinton, whoever hoax, and that the real thing we should focus on is Russia, 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 Russia. Well, I am focusing on Russia right now, Donald Trump, and I'm focusing on how your cowardice has emboldened Putin while Russia's actually on the ropes, and we should be helping Ukraine. Here's just that photo again of Donald Trump from South Park that I'm showing for no apparent reason. Now, it's almost like this is an AI image. Let me flag that from the outset, right? But it's almost like Donald Trump is giving the Medal of Freedom or something to Ghislaine Maxwell. After all, he wished her well before at her sex trafficking trial. Let's not try to celebrate this individual. She's sick. She is a sex trafficker. She's been found guilty of that. And when she was sentenced, the Department of Justice said that she was a liar. She showed no remorse. And in meticulous detail, they went through all of the victims, underage girls who Ghislaine Maxwell facilitated their sexual assault as underage girls. How despicable is that? By the way, some of those victims, like Virginia Giuffre, who has since died by suicide in Australia, was an underage towel girl, was the title, at the spa in Mar-a-Lago. And that's where Ghislaine Maxwell found her, brought her over to Jeffrey Epstein, since they lived right down the block, Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein. And that's when Jeffrey Epstein started sex trafficking her. Also, from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, we learned about Jane Doe, underage girl, 14 years old. We learned that Jeffrey Epstein brought her over, and there was a meeting there between Epstein, Ghislaine, the 14-year-old girl, and Donald Trump in a subsequent or civil lawsuit around the time. It may be the same 14-year-old girl, may be different, but the underage girl said that Epstein brought her over, brought her to Trump, and said something to the extent of, you like this little one? You like this little one? How utterly sickening is that? Now, as I mentioned, Ghislaine Maxwell got that use immunity. She was called a queen for the day, which means all of the things that she told Donald Trump's Department of Justice, who happened to be Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the DOJ, she can no longer be prosecuted. She has immunity for that. So if Donald Trump ever pardons her or commutes her sentence based on the things that she said, she can't be prosecuted again. How, again, utterly despicable is that? And don't let anyone gaslight you to go, oh, well, of course, that's normal. Of course, the Department of Justice grants people immunity. Why else would they talk? You know who the Department of Justice should be speaking to? The victims, not the sex trafficker. Ghislaine Maxwell had an opportunity to do what's called a proffer and to let the government know. You know when that was? Before she was convicted of sex trafficking, before the trial took place. This never happens where someone who's convicted of sex trafficking, who's serving their sentence in prison for 20 plus years, is then given immunity. Why would you give that person immunity unless you're trying to cover stuff up? Again, I'm really proud of the way we start these videos at the MeidasTouch Network, because I want to focus on the international affairs, because I want to focus on what we should be talking about. But instead, we have to listen to an individual like Donald Trump occupying the Oval Office, who's considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Like earlier today, before he took his trip to Scotland, again, they don't want him there, he was asked, would you consider a pardon or commutation for Ghislaine? Here's what he says. Play this clip.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
it's something I haven't thought about. It's really something
recommended.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out.
Now, if you were wondering if Trump is going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, here is how Trump previously responded when asked if he would pardon Flynn, Manafort, and Stone. Here, play this clip.
I don't want to talk about pardons for Michael Flynn yet.
You pardon Paul Manafort?
I have not even given it a thought as of this moment.
Elijah Stone, are you going to pardon him, sir? He's been convicted of felonies.
Am I going to pardon him? Yes. Well, I hadn't thought of it. I think it's very tough what they did to Roger Stone.
You know, and again, this is who this sexual abuser, Donald Trump was found liable for sexual abuse, felon, bankrupter, fraud, is. This is how he behaves. What was it? What was July 18th, 2025, where Donald Trump gave that speech? He goes, any former president who would allow a weak dollar is stupid, is a dummy. I will never let that happen. And then what did Donald Trump say yesterday before he went to Scotland? A weak dollar makes you rich. That's what everybody knows. We like weak dollars. Remember, we did a split screen just so you can see it for yourself. Here, play this clip.
No, we're not going to let the dollar slide. If we have a smart president, you're never going to let the dollar slide. If you have a dummy, that could happen. Like the last one, he would, if you ever asked him about the dollar sliding, he would have no idea. But we can't let that ever happen again.
Why has the dollar fallen so much, and are you concerned about that?
Well, I'm a person that likes a strong dollar, but a weak dollar makes you a hell of a lot more money. When we have a strong dollar, one thing happens, it sounds good. But you don't do any tourism, you can't sell tractors, You can't sell trucks. You can't sell anything. It is good for inflation. That's about it. It doesn't sound good, but you make a hell of a lot more money with a weaker dollar. Not a weak dollar, but a weaker dollar than you do with a strong dollar.
And then I'm going to do a whole other video on this. But Donald Trump then walks around and pretends he's making trade deals. We haven't seen a single trade deal. Have you seen a piece of paper that's actually a binding deal signed between the United States and any country? No, because Donald Trump is playing make-believe. These aren't real deals. And then he goes around and makes posts like this. Australia to take U.S. beef for first time. A very big market. I hope our great farmers are happy. Make America great again. Our farmers aren't. Well, Australia's not going to buy America beef. What are you talking about? Australia is one of the biggest exporters of beef. Why would they take American beef for? It makes zero sense. And as Justin Wolfers, economist from the University of Michigan, says, the British trade deal wasn't what they said it was. We haven't even seen the paper, although, well, I guess Donald Trump at the G7, when he stayed there for 5 hours, dropped some blank pieces of paper on the floor and then called the UK the European Union. Remember when he dropped the papers, he looked at Keir Starmer, oh, look at the deal I made with the European Union. It's the United Kingdom, you idiot. The British trade deal wasn't what they said it was. The Vietnamese won't confirm Trump's announcement. Think about that. You won't confirm it at all. Same thing with Indonesia. The Japanese say they're not signing a binding agreement ever. So there's really no Japanese trade deal. So the White House has done 0 deals and just goes around and pretending it. Donald Trump's like, Japan is going to give us $550 billion. They're giving us a signing bonus. No, they're not. Why are you making these things up? It's so deranged and delusional. And Justin Wolfers also points out that Donald Trump seems to have gotten bored after sending out 25 tariff letters. He stopped sending out letters to the rest of the world. So he still needs to send out 166 tariff letters ahead of the revised deadline of August 1st. It's now July 26th. He just sent 26 out. And then he says the letters are deals. The letters aren't deals. They look like letters written by 5th graders to countries. Dear Mr. Japan. It's like, what are we even talking about here? All right. Talking about Donald Trump in Scotland. That's where he is right now. We're sorry, Scotland, that he's there. I know you don't want the felon, sexual abuser, predator there. Here's what it says. And by the way, just to be very clear, the felony he was convicted of was for business fraud. When I say sexual abuser, I am referring to the civil case where Donald Trump was found liable for sexual assault. When I refer to him as a bankrupter, it's because he's bankrupted multiple business. I just want to make sure I'm very clear with the facts. That's what we do here at the MeidasTouch Network. So Epstein Island signs are now appearing throughout Scotland and at Donald Trump's golf course ahead of his visit right there. And then when Donald Trump landed in Scotland, again, go back to how I started this video. What should we be talking about? Well, what's the United States doing regarding Thailand and Cambodia? What's the United States doing to help Ukraine? What's the United States doing to stop the suffering in Gaza right now? What's the United States doing right now to stop the horrific images of starving and dying women and children in Gaza? It is unforgivable. It is tragic. And we should all be calling out what's going on right there. It breaks my heart every day. And Donald Trump's like, whatever it is what it is. You promised you would stop that in 24 hours. You promised you would bring peace to Ukraine in 24 hours. But here's what Donald Trump's talking about in Scotland. You know, Obama, Russia. And when it comes to Epstein, you should focus on the hedge fund guys. Or focus on Bill Clinton. This is what Donald Trump says. Here, play this clip.
What are you hoping Todd Blanche interviewing Gillian Maxwell? What are you hoping that they get out of that?
I really have really nothing to say about it. She is being talked to by a very smart man, by a very good man, Todd Blanche. And I don't know anything about the conversation. I haven't really been following it. A lot of people are asking me about pardons. Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got. You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. you should be talking about, if you're going to talk about that, talk about Clinton, talk about the former president of Harvard, talk about all of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump. What you should be talking about is the fact that we have the greatest 6 months in the history of a presidency, according to a lot of people. And we had an amazing 6 months. And this is sort of an example of it. Now we're meeting with the European Union, we're also meeting with, as you know, the head of UK.
Now, one of the other things that I'll make a whole video on as well, Ghislaine Maxwell is debating whether or not she's going to answer questions from Congress. Right. Congress set the deposition of Ghislaine Maxwell for August 11th, I think. Yeah, like August 11th. So that's why Trump sent his former criminal defense lawyer, who Trump made his number 2 at the DOJ, because the DOJ is really Donald Trump's criminal defense racket at this point. So Trump wanted his team to meet with Ghislaine first. They give her the use immunity. I think they dangle a pardon in front of her, and then they get what they want from her. And then she probably won't answer any questions from Congress, and she'll invoke, my prediction, she'll invoke her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, and she won't remember things when it comes to Congress. Maxwell's lawyer says she's undecided on appearing for congressional testimony, undecided for speaking to Congress, but was very quick to meet with Trump's criminal defense lawyer / number 2 at the DOJ. It's all happening in plain view, folks. So finally, let me give a voice to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. They're the ones who should be heard, not sex trafficking Ghislaine Maxwell. The victims, the survivors, I actually should say. Here's Teresa Helm, a survivor. Let's play it.
Do you worry that Maxwell will be given some kind of leniency, maybe even a pardon? What would that mean to you?
I am concerned about that, and it would mean the complete crumbling of this justice system that should first and foremost stand for, fight for, and protect survivors. We all deserve a pathway to justice, and then we don't deserve to have it yet again robbed from us, because so much has already been taken. It truly does seem, I should say, just an upside down world where you are promised, and there are declarations of the judicial system working to support pathways to justice, and for them just to simply crumble is what it appears is happening right now.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe, and let's get to 6 million subscribers. New Meidas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.MeidasTouch.com.